This is the base model Galaxy S26. What's actually wrong with it? Here is our review of the base S26 model. Welcome back to SamMobile TV. You're here with Daniel. The Galaxy S26 is getting a lot of hate. I can understand why, especially when you look at the specs and look at the specs of the past 4 generations. It kind of makes sense why people are dissing it. So when you look at the device through the eyes of the wider industry, then yes, this isn't really a device that stacks up. Especially when you look at it through the lens of the hardware that it's got, it doesn't represent good value. But as per recently with Samsung, hardware doesn't tell the story. Experience and usage does. Right from the start, I'm going to tell you, this is not a phone that is designed for me to be using. I am not the target consumer of the Galaxy S26. I use all of the cameras on a phone. I like big displays on a phone. I like to get stuff done. I love everything to be on the higher end of the scale, the top of everything, in Samsung world that is. But for the right person, and there's a person out there for this is the best phone you can get. Let's take a look at why. For the right person, chasing a compact phone, a lightweight phone, this is perfect. It's small in the hands, it's thin, it's light, it's got everything you could want out of a compact flagship in 2026 from a design point of view. It effectively weighs the same as the Galaxy S25 Edge, so it's lightweight enough so when you pick it off a table, you're not feeling heavy and cumbersome to hold it in your hands. It feels lightweight and it feels like you can hold it for a long period of time. It might be thicker than the S25 Edge, but it is smaller and means it's easy enough to navigate around the screen one-handed, so you're not trying to reach for the corners unrealistically. Everything can be reached conveniently. It has premium materials. It looks aesthetically pleasing as well. Samsung have got a nice build quality here, one that's consistent across the entire range now, and you just have a nice aesthetic to look at from a design point of view. And then when you turn the device around to the display, you've got a visually aesthetically pleasing display to look at too. Like, it's very nice, catches the eye, and looks great. Gets plenty bright outdoors, and got great vibrancy when you're watching your content on your screen. You've got a really good experience there. That isn't to say that it's perfect. Samsung could do better here. It's got no anti-reflective coating, as you can see, no matter when the screen's on or off. It hasn't got that coating that the Ultra has got. And it's also only Full HD+. There's actually no option in the display settings to change the resolution even down to HD+. It just doesn't exist. It's not necessarily noticeable. When you're watching your content on the screen, everything's still going to look sharp, crisp, and detailed. And because you don't have another device to compare it next to, it's not something you're likely going to dwell on, but you may just want that number for number's sake. Also, the chances of someone switching from an Ultra flagship to a compact base model flagship are very slim. Not to say it doesn't happen, it's just not as likely as people switching from this to go up. You might be switching for form factor though, and if you're switching for size, then the screen resolution likely isn't something you're going to be dwelling on too much. You're focusing more on the aesthetic and the design. One could argue that the displays on the base series have never really been the problem for Samsung. They've had 120 Hz since the start of the Ultra lineup. The S20 and S20 Plus have had that high refresh rate pretty much for the last 6 years now. And from a design point of view, they've always been high end. It's always had minimal bezel. It's always had the cutout here for the camera. There it is. It's kind of not been a problem. They've given it the same panel, albeit losing out on the anti-reflective coating, and this year, no privacy display. But from a display and design point of view, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a big check. Where things take a bit of a turn here, for this year especially, are these 3 things here on the back. The cameras. Most specifically on the hardware front too. We'll talk about software in a minute. It immediately falls short, especially when you start comparing it to other flagships out there or other compact flagships. Samsung haven't updated these 3 things in the last 4 years now. Same ultra-wide, same 50 megapixel 1 and 1.56 inch sensor with an f1.8 aperture, and the same average 3x telephoto. They may have upgraded the sensors for light sensitivity and everything like that in the back end, but all intents and purposes, they're effectively the same. Where I notice this the most is in lower light. The ultra-wide camera and the 3x camera, you notice a noticeable shift in light intake compared to the main camera. That's just because the sensor sizes are smaller and the apertures are poorer. The Ultra this year, not to compare, had a much more consistent experience, whereas the S26, you're not going to get that. Whilst Samsung haven't upgraded these cameras, the most disappointing factor is the target consumer, they don't care. Or the majority of the target consumers, they're not going to question it. Is it good? I don't think so. Not anymore. I think it allows Samsung to be a bit more complacent with what they're doing with the base model series and kind of puts all their attention onto the Ultra. But when Samsung peeks over the fence at their biggest competitor, the number one smartphone consumer in terms of the premium segment, and they see that the base model iPhone has barely registered an upgrade in the 4 years leading up to this, well, the last year's one, the iPhone 17, Samsung are like, well, we've already started from a high bar. They're playing catch up. Their highest selling phone is likely the iPhone 17, and it's got 2 rear cameras. So Samsung already offers a little bit more in that sense, and yet everyone's still slating them. So there's no real incentive for Samsung to do anything other than the bare minimum. And that's effectively what they've done. That conversation about hardware is definitely one for the spec hunters, the people that read the sheet and go, well, that looks exactly the same as last year. Me personally, I am a little bit of a spec hunter, and that's why I could never use this full time. But where I think Samsung kind of gets away with it is the output here and the processing. Because ultimately, the target consumer isn't too worried about the numbers on here. They just look at what they see on the screen once they've captured the photo. And whatever processing Samsung have done here with the Exynos 2600, I think a lot of people are going to be very pleased with the output they get. The photos I've taken so far look great. From food photos to landscape photos to morning shots in the park, they have detail, they have dynamic range, and they have contrast and vibrancy. The S26 also gets the 24 megapixel default resolution from the Galaxy S26 Ultra. However, it is only supported on the 1x camera. When you switch to the ultra wide or the 3x, it immediately defaults to 12 because those cameras don't have high resolution. It's all part of the camera assistant suite of features in terms of advanced resolution options. There's the 24 megapixel resolution option right there. And then, of course, you go in and turn it on to keep it. I did test out the difference between the 12, the 24, and the 50 megapixel options for this main camera. And what you'll see is that obviously 24 strikes a really good balance between detail and, I guess, dynamic range and colors. 50 megapixel gives you that extra detail, and the 12 obviously lacks the most when you crop in. That's on the photos front. When you switch to video, what you'll notice is that this is not a phone designed for the mobile video enthusiast. If you're casually into video though, this actually might work out really well. You do lose out on the APV codec from the video front. It does give you the option to still shoot in log, and of course you got HDR as well. So both those still exist, and you also get the option to still have LUT previews. So you can apply a LUT preview over the top of your video as you're recording. And the log video looks great. It still, again, processes a bit more points of dynamic range because it's capturing more. And then you can go into the phone afterwards and actually edit it on device and still add LUTs on device. So for the casual video person, you still have a lot of options here with the Galaxy S26. And Samsung also brought in, let's turn log off so I can make this to work, horizontal lock. So if you're going to super steady and you've got horizontal lock that you can activate, and again, it works pretty much the same as it does on the Ultra. You do lose out on the 2x crop option, but for the most part, it performs functionally the same. I was a little bit disappointed with the selfies on this phone. It also doesn't get the wider selfie option from the Galaxy S26 Ultra. It defaults to a 23mm focal range as opposed to 25, which gives it a little bit of extra width. And the quality is not quite as good as well. It doesn't quite process highlights in the background enough. And I think a lot of people will be a little bit disappointed by that. From a performance standpoint, this is where I guess a lot of people would look at the spec sheet and read Exynos, and again, immediately dismiss it. And if you do that, again, this isn't the phone for you. But for the right person, they're not going to look at the spec sheet and read Exynos and even know what that means. They just want a high performing phone. This chip will pretty much handle anything that you throw at it, whether it be audio eraser, so the feature that's built into the device that actually processes audio on device too. You don't actually need to do the cloud or anything like that. This all processes everything on the phone itself. The Exynos 2600 is going to be more than capable of handling that, as you can see right now. Log video editing. So you can go in and you can edit log video with LUTs straight on the phone as well. So you can go and either manually adjust the sliders or pick an on-device LUT and save copy. And again, the Exynos 2600 is going to breeze through the export of that. And if you're someone who's into gaming, it will allow for casual to intensive gaming as well. I'm not a big mobile gamer myself. I dabble. I'm a bit of a Call of Duty fan back in the day. So Call of Duty Mobile appeals to me the most. The only thing about this phone compared to maybe the Ultra is you don't quite have the screen real estate to play the game on as intensely as you maybe could with a bigger phone. And it might create misfires when you're trying to shoot or play first-person shooters, for example. It does feel a little bit compact and you do feel a little bit restricted in that sense. But from a performance standpoint, it performs great. Where the performance drawback is likely going to hit you is the battery and the charging. From a battery standpoint, it might have a 4300 milliamp hour battery capacity, which I think sounds good on paper, especially compared to where Samsung have come from in the past. But functionally, 4300 milliamp hours maybe just isn't enough anymore. If I look at the usage just from today, so screen on time's been 44 minutes and I'm down to 82% already. Not great, but again, this is probably needing to learn my usage patterns a little bit more for it to understand how I use the phone, but you might expect a little bit better. Where you might also expect a little bit better is in charging. It only supports 25 watt fast charging. So unfortunately, plugging it in, you only get the standard super fast charging 1.0. You're not going to get 2.0 or the new 3.0. And again, with a battery size of 4300, that could be a bit problematic if you're needing to charge it up quickly. It's 2026. We can do better than 25 watt now. The question about what is wrong with this phone isn't actually asked by the right people. If you study and research the purchasing decision for your next phone, then you're likely going to draw the conclusion that this is not the phone for you. Because the majority of people don't even really research their purchasing decision of the next phone. A lot of people go into the shop, set their old phone down on the table and say, give me the new one of this. And then they walk out with it. They might have the S23, they might have a fan edition, or they might be stepping into flagship territory for the first time and coming from an A series. They don't read spec sheets, they don't understand chipsets. It's not their realm. They just want a phone that has a nice prestige, a good brand name, Samsung has a good reputation, and they want a phone that does enough, but without all the bells and whistles of things like the Ultra, for example. That is who this phone is for. And for them, it is actually the perfect device. Great display, good output from the cameras, and a good performing phone that will actually give them high-end performance for years to come. Backed by good software as well, I should say. Let me know what you guys think about the Galaxy S26. Obviously, I know that most of our audience won't like what this is offering. And that's okay, because it might not be for you. That's why Samsung offer the Ultra in the lineup as well, because it's the phone that has all of those extras that people might want. But for everyone else, it's a great choice. Hit subscribe to SamMobile TV. Go check us out on all of our socials and our website. If you want to order the S26 or the S26 Ultra or the Buds 4 Pro, use the link in the description, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.